Welcome to the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Kennedy, and I'm here to help you become the very best version of yourself. What's up, guys? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Sabrina Frederick. I'm really excited about this conversation. We only just met about 5 minutes ago, and I had to stop our conversation because I was like, fuck, I'm not going to have much left to talk about in the actual show. I can't waste it all before we start. But Sabrina, firstly, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Honestly, it's probably a long time coming. We have a lot of people that we know.
Yeah, so many mutual friends, yeah. We were just chatting before we started the episode about AFLW and you know the off season at the moment and the season being brought forward, pre-season starting a little earlier, and then also talking about the VFL and stuff like that. So on that subject, I'd love to know like how did you first get into football? I'm assuming you had an athletic background before that, but what was like I guess the catalyst of you wanting to pursue football as a career?
Yeah, I mean it was kind of a weird one because I'm born in the UK, so I moved here when I was really young and I didn't even know footy existed. So it was sort of one of those things where I enrolled in a new school and everyone at my school played footy at recess and lunch. Like it was massive. So it was sort of one of those things where it's like, what's the easiest way to make friends? Like just throw yourself in, and I genuinely did. And it's so strange looking back now, like I didn't know the game, I didn't know the rules, and I actually initially thought it was rugby, which is hilarious. Like I just didn't know anything, and right from like the word go, like I loved it. I loved everything about the game. It's just everything, and from that moment I was just playing recess and lunch every day until the school coach sort of saw me playing, was like, this girl's all right.
Yeah.
Like she can go, and sort of gave me the tap on the shoulder and said like, you need to try out for the school team.
Yeah, cool.
I didn't really think anything of it. And so yeah, I just did, and then just progressed I got into the team, and then it was sort of like, well, all my mates now are playing, you know, in the community leagues, like maybe I should go and do that, and then did that. And it was so strange though, looking back, because at the time I didn't know the sport existed, and then when I fell in love with the sport, I didn't realise like women couldn't play professionally at that stage. So it was, I never like dreamt of being a professional footballer, you know what I mean?
So did that kind of like hinder the motivation to work at the game in a sense, purely knowing that there was a limit of to how far you could potentially go? It's
strange, like when you're a kid you're just so naive, hey? Like looking back now, I don't think I even thought about it. Yeah, okay. It didn't even occur to me like I'm going to stop this just because I couldn't do it professionally. I just really enjoyed it, and all my friends were doing it. So for me it was genuinely just right time
and that's typically the best period of playing any sport.
It's the best.
There's no pressure. It's pure enjoyment and passion. Yeah. You just play because you love it, and it's the best time.
I genuinely feel like, because I was playing lots of sports as a kid, but there was that element of pressure. Like being from the UK, soccer is massive over there, and my family are well into it. So there was probably more pressure on that side to succeed as a soccer player.
Okay.
And it's funny because even though I was alright at soccer, the full passion wasn't there. But with footy, there was no pressure. I just loved it, loved hanging out with my mates, and I feel like I got better at it because just that pure joy.
Yeah. So on that topic, like how was the support from those closest to you when you did decide to pursue football more so than soccer?
It was a strange one because like I was the only girl that was playing football at my school and at my football club. Like I was the only girl there. Right. So the reaction probably wasn't a great one in the sense that a lot of people didn't think I belonged there. I was pretty lucky.
I'm assuming you could feel like you could sense that.
Yeah. I think that
more so from as in like opposition or people outside, or even like within the teams and stuff as well?
I think in terms of the teams itself, because I was going to those to that club with guys I'd played with at the school. They already knew I could play.
Yeah, okay.
So that didn't...
The respect was there.
Yeah, that was already built. So that wasn't a weird thing at my club, but definitely with opposition. Like every time we'd play a team, there'd be like whispers and all of that sort of stuff, parents talking, I guess, and still until we started playing.
Till you laid a few people out, yeah.
And it's so funny because like my family, they were always supportive of just me and my siblings doing things that we loved and enjoyed, and there was no pressure on it. So from their perspective, it wasn't like something they thought I couldn't do. But I remember it getting to my mum a bit though, when we would turn up to away games and there'd be parents saying like, she shouldn't be playing, you know what I mean? Because like I was just a kid. But yeah, it was easily changed.
Definitely. So what was your reaction when, I guess it was announced that there'd be an AFLW and then as well, like that, the whole experience of, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you started with Brisbane, was it? And then Richmond and now Collingwood, So, the reaction of when it was announced, and then also like the experience of playing that first professional game as well. How was that? Yeah,
it was an absolute roller coaster, and I was just in the right place at the right time, genuinely, because I just turned 18 when they said they were gonna bring in a professional league. Right. So that's like a prime age to come into a professional sporting league. And not just that, but I was talking to you before about the playing soccer. I was playing soccer at the same time throughout that whole period because my original thought was to go over to the US on a scholarship and play
college.
Yeah. And I actually got one. I got given one to go over to New York, and I actually turned that down because of the timing of the league being announced. So
had you had talks with clubs already, or you literally just turned it down in the hopes of it coming?
Yeah, it was within a few week period of each other. Like
that's a big call.
Yeah, it was massive. Like such a crossroad. My life could be completely different, and I don't know. Like just something in me just said like, you have this passion for footy. Like it's not that I didn't enjoy the soccer, but it was going to be more of a job. Whereas football for me, like I have the opportunity to be my job, but I just love it. I love playing, and there was something in me that was like, you've got to take that risk. And
I guess as well, like because it was the beginning, like the opportunity to have a massive impact on the sport itself. Yeah. Whereas, you know, I'm assuming you were a very good soccer player, and you could have potentially done really great things, but in the end of the day, you're not the first person to go to college and play professional soccer, whereas AFLW is just opening up. Yeah,
there was definitely an element to that because there were so many people I'd played with that it was, you know, a missed boat for them. Like they were a lot older and they weren't going to get that opportunity. And I think that there were so many great players at that age, like older than me, that if they had that opportunity at their time, they would have been in it. And I think there was that element of, you get this opportunity. Yeah. So don't waste it because there are so many that didn't. And I was 18, I had no responsibility. So it was like, well, this is the time. And I had my mum saying, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can always come home. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Yeah. And at the time I was living in Perth, and I took a gamble to go and move my whole life to Brisbane. To go and play for a team.
Yeah, so that was post being selected by Brisbane, I'm assuming.
It was interesting.
How was that? Like, how did that whole process work for you?
I think at the time I was sort of just running off adrenaline, especially because I didn't get selected in the draft. I got selected as a marquee player, so a franchise player. So I was one of 12, the first one of 12 to be drafted ever, to be signed. And I think at that time I was just really excited and just running off adrenaline. But I think looking back,
was in that. So was like Katie Brennan was in that group as well.
Katie was playing for Bulldogs. Taylor Harris was over at Brisbane with me. Daisy Pearce was over at Melbourne. Like,
was Erin Phillips in that little?
No.
Nah, she was later on.
Yeah, later on. So we did it actually. looking back now, it was a lot for an 18-year-old to go through.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure and a lot of heavy lifting. Like, we were a part of what the team looked like, how our change rooms would be built, like
really?
all the small
Wow.
small details.
So you had to say in selection process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. And that's why anyone that was in that initial group, I have so much respect for, because people will never understand how much work it would have taken for each of those players, because you're helping build a framework that wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. And me and Taylor, like, Taylor was 8 months younger than me. So
It's crazy,
you've
isn't
got
it?
two kids
Straight
in
out of
Brisbane,
school and
straight out of
running
school,
a professional football team.
like being the face of a club. And at that time I was like, this is awesome, but like, it's a lot. It was a lot.
So how many years were you at Brisbane?
I was there for 3.
For 3, yeah. And then you're at Richmond and now Collingwood. So how, in that time period, how much have you seen, I guess, the sport grow and like, what are the things, I guess, you're most happy about in terms of where it's progressed to?
Yeah, it's gone crazy. And to be honest, I never doubted that, because I just know how talented these women are, like extremely talented. And they just needed the opportunity to show that. So I never once doubted how quickly it was going to grow. And I'm super proud that, like, this will be the first season coming up where we have a women's team for every club. You know, there's, like, that's insane in a 6-year period to know that every football club has a women's team now. And you can't not be proud of that. Like, it's a credit to all the players and the staff too, because it's a lot of work to do on a part-time basis. Like,
I think that, you know, I was definitely right from day one, like, super supportive of it and happy of the fact that there was an AFLW, but because of that point where it is a part-time gig, there was always, in my mind anyway, it was like the question of, will this kind of last? I think at the start, and that's from the outside, so I'm sure, like you said, from the inside, there was never any doubt, but from the outside, because it was part-time, it was very short off-season, relatively short season, and obviously the selection pool at that period wasn't as big as what it is now, so it was like, I wonder if this will last. But yeah, the growth has been huge.
Yeah, I mean, like any startup, there's always, you know, is this going to float or, you know, and it takes a lot of work. And that's why I say credit to the players, especially the staff too, but the players, because there was just a lot, especially in those initial 2 years, there was a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice to get it to where it is now. But like, I think that it was probably years and years of having no opportunity that almost helped the sport grow so quickly, because we know that, like, things like this don't happen very often. And we needed to really capitalise on this and grab people's attention. And I think that we did. You know, in our first season, there was selling out games. Like, I remember my first game was in Melbourne. My second game was over in Perth. We packed out Fremantle Oval, 20,000 people, round 2. Like,
That's
it was insane.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Like, I'm used to just a few hundred, like, family and friends being at games, and I'm playing my second game ever in front of 20,000 people packed. Like, I'm talking like people could not get through the gates.
That's
packed.
unreal.
Yeah, and it was like.
How was you someone that tends to get quite nervous for big games or big occasions like that, or did you feel like you handled the pressure quite well?
I mean, definitely there is parts of nerves, but I think
it's
it's a healthy.
If you don't have nerves, I feel as though that's you should be worried if you don't have nerves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I find it quite healthy, and I don't think I get so nervous to the point I can't do anything. Like, I think that pressure is a privilege. Like, I love that element of, you know, there's a bit of pressure on this to be good and to execute. And I think that at that period of time, I was like, this is awesome. Like, okay, you could lose a game, but even if you lose the game, like, how amazing is this? And I think that that's the coolest part about it, is like, the worst thing that could happen is you lose, but how still amazing is this experience? So I kind of I've taken that throughout my whole career of, I never intended to play AFL at this level. So I've already won.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's all up from here, isn't it? Yeah.
That's how I see it anyway. Yeah.
If you could fast track improvements or areas of the game or the league, or whether it's the length of off seasons, the length of the seasons, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
If you could fast track that by, say, fast track the next 5 or 10 years, like what are the things that you would change as of right now?
I think just the first thing would be paying everyone minimum wage, for sure, because as soon as you do that, it allows the players to focus solely on their craft. Because right now, you've got everyone doing something. Like I have paramedics on my team, police officers on my team who are doing shift work and then like training.
Yeah.
So that would be the first thing is changing the pay scale to minimum wage, so then at least everyone has the opportunity to just focus on that.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be the first thing. And then the second thing would probably be just infrastructure. I think just investing in making sure every club's got the same sort of facilities-wise, like the same opportunities, because you have some clubs that have some, like I'm really lucky, like I play at one of the best clubs in the land, and we've got access to everything.
Yeah.
But then you have other clubs
down there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have other clubs that don't. And that would be my second thing, would be just investing so everyone has the basics that what we need to perform. But yeah, that'd probably be my main two.
Well, from a staff perspective, are you able to give us a rough idea of how many staff are involved in the team?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of full-time, we only have 2 in our club that are full-time. Our coach is full-time, so when he's not coaching us, he has involvement with the men's program, and our head of football also has involvement with the men's program. So those 2 are full-time, and then we've probably got 8 or 9 other staff, but they're all part-time too.
Yeah.
So like we'll have, our physio, who's also a physio somewhere else, coaches that are teachers.
Do you see it getting to the point where it is a full-time gig for everyone involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it has to. It has to, because I think in the next couple of years you'll see a plateau in the product, if not, because I think we're getting to a point now where the demand is so high, like what the AFL demand from us as players for the product, it's just really hard to do with where we're at now. So I think we'll definitely get to a point in the next year or 2 where something's going to have to change for it to keep growing. It's the same as any business though. Yeah. Like you've got to scale. And I think right now we're at that point where something needs to be scaled.
The growth needs to continue. Yeah. Before we touch on, because I want to talk about SAS. Because we've got
Everyone
a bunch
loves
of,
it.
as you said, we've got a bunch of mutual friends, and a few of them have been on the show. But before we talk about that, obviously that physically and mentally, for anyone who's seen the show, is a serious challenge, and you kind of get to some. I'm assuming you get to some pretty dark places. Outside of that, before we talk about that though, what has been one of, I guess, the biggest moments of adversity you've had to face in your life outside of sport up until this point that you think has kind of helped you grow into a better person?
Well, I think like being a female in a predominantly male industry is a massive part of it, and not in the sense where I say like it's ever like males versus females, because I'm not like that and never has been. But I think just always having that chip on my shoulder of knowing that I've always got to be the best. Like I can't be any less than, because then I don't deserve to be here.
Right.
So that I would say that's a huge one, because that wasn't just a small part in time. That's from the moment I started playing to still now. Like I'm still dealing with that now, and I'm 25.
Yeah.
So that would be a huge part of it. And I think just being a part-time footballer in general is also another one, because I have so many other factors in my life where I'm trying to balance it, and balance doesn't really exist in that world. No. But I'm trying to balance it. But then a third one would probably be just that move from the UK to Australia, like being a woman of colour and moving to Australia. It was a complete like 180 of where I was living. A very accepting place where I was living, and very progressive. to where I moved to in Perth was just not progressive and very closed-minded.
Right.
And I think that played a part in me sort of, I mean, I see it as a good thing in the sense that I don't rely on anyone, and I sort of know that I have to work extremely hard to do things. But at times it does get exhausting.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
So those would be, I would say, the three in terms of adversity that I've been through or still going through.
How do you, on a smaller scale, let's say it's a tough loss, let's say it's an injury or fucking anything that just doesn't go your way that you hoped it would, do you have like a bit of a process, or like how do you typically deal with adversity? I always find that quite interesting to hear how people, how it varies between how people actually deal with it and I guess use it as fuel or let it get the better of them in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty lucky in the sense that I was just raised, in my opinion, I was raised to have perspective from really, really young. And I didn't quite value it when I was younger, but I do now because there's always something worse happening.
Perspective, everything, yeah.
And, you know, even with football, like it is my job, but it also is just a game. So there's parts of that.
And there's so many girls out there that would love to be in the same position.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's having that balance, I think, of being grateful and pushing for the better for everything that you're doing, but also having perspective of, you know, what could be if you're not in this situation. And I think that really does help me and grounds me a lot in moments where it's really full on, because I can have a balanced mindset and go, like I said with the football thing, like I never wanted to be a footballer, so like I'm winning, you know what I mean? Like having that perspective on life of like what an opportunity I get to have. So let's just keep working.
Yeah. I love that. Moving on to SAS, going into it, I'm assuming you would have had relatively high expectations in terms of how difficult it was going to be, both physically and mentally. Did it surpass your expectation of how difficult it would be? And then I guess second to that, what did you find most difficult? Was it more the physical side of things, or was it mentally harder than the physical side? Yeah,
it's like I was a fan of the show previously because it originated in the UK. Like my family love it, so I watched it and loved the show. And I think I didn't really have expectations, but I knew it was going to be the hardest thing I've ever done. Like I knew that going in, because it's so real. Like I know it's reality TV, and a lot of reality shows are not what it seems, but that
I feel as though SAS is like the only reality TV show where I was talking to Jackson about it after his experience, and he was just like, a lot of the time you don't even realize that you're being filmed. Like a lot of the time it's literally just like there's not one point in time where, apart from, or even when you're doing, because I mean like I haven't watched every episode, but like when you're doing like the talks and it is obviously being filmed, like you're never directly talking to camera, are you?
No.
Which is such a vast difference between every other reality TV show.
In my opinion, I think it's the only reality TV show that is harder than what it looks in real life.
Yeah.
Like there is no cut, there is no breaks, like everything, like even the stuff on the show, like you'll watch that and you go, that's insane, but you wouldn't have seen us running for 12 Ks with a backpack on our backs beforehand.
It's like we have to get to and from everywhere, and it doesn't just happen.
So like all of that stuff, and you don't there are no producers on set. It's only stunt camera people. Yeah. So it'll be like you might see 2 or 3 camera people, and the rest will be like ages away in a bush or something. And
creeping out a couple of kilometers away.
And then you might, like, if they're changing our batteries for our mic, you'll have a few people come in, but then they're directed not to speak to you. So you just have people that just genuinely change your mic over, and that's it. That's the only contact you have with anyone other than the recruits and the DS. But in terms of how hard it was hard physically. Do not get me wrong. Like, it was the hardest physical thing I've ever done. But mentally, it is definitely trumps the physical aspect, like by a country mile. Like there are so many people I know that are physically fit that would not be able to do that. In my opinion, there are some really fit people I know and probably wouldn't last longer than 3 days. Like it was tough.
From what perspective was it tough? I mean, obviously like the challenges and stuff, but I guess like, yeah, are you able to give us a bit of insight as to like the thoughts and the things running through your head at those times where it is super difficult?
Well, for a start, the DS are so like they're trained to be able to push the individual's buttons, and they get given like a psychological profile on everyone, so they would know certain things that would push you individually to the limit. So like there'll be moments where, say, you're physically drained, where they know, okay, this is your time where I'm going to now psychologically get to you. And, you know, you're exhausted, like you're depleted in terms of energy, you've got hardly any food, you're always on, like there is no breaks. Like our break time would be when we're drying clothes, and they had to be bone dry. Like or when you're sleeping. But even when you're sleeping, you're always thinking, like
I'm going to have to get up soon.
like, or they might wake you up in the middle of the night, and then we might get. There's this thing called a bee sting, is when they'll wake you up and they'll just punish you for hours. Like they'll make you do assault courses and stuff, and like some of that doesn't even get on TV.
That's
like
brutal.
And so all of that psychological play, like you're also away from home, you're in this environment with strangers. And
it's going to be played on national TV.
Yeah, I mean, being completely honest, that is the last thing. All I'll say, I think there's people that think people on there doing things for cameras. All I'll say is you do not have the energy to even think about this being recorded. Like you just don't. You're exhausted. You can't fake who you are on there. And I love that about the show. It's why I'm a massive fan of it, because you are pushed so hard that you show your true elements of who you are. And for anyone that wants to challenge themselves, like genuinely, I always say this is the one, because you'll find out what you're truly like, and if your back's up against the wall, what you would do.
From a physical perspective, how long did it take you to recover?
Oh.
And I don't know if you measured this at all, but do you know, like in terms of body composition or like weight, for example, like how much you lost being so low on a deficit and so big energy output?
When I was on there, I lost 7 kilos, and that was out of the last 4 of us that were there, that I probably lost the least, and that was 7 kilos in a 2-week span. And I hurt my back on the show. And I probably didn't look as serious because I was trying to keep it together, and I wanted to finish it. So it probably didn't look as bad, but when I left, like I had like a bulging disc and like had issues that my club weren't too happy about.
Yeah, I can imagine.
At the time.
Yeah.
But I would say it took me 4 months of rehab to get that right.
Oh, shit.
And in terms of like the actual fatigue of it and getting your just body back to a normal state, I reckon it took me a few weeks. Our season was the one that had the worst weather, like it was freezing. So I lost all sensation in my fingertips and my toes, and I probably didn't get it back till 3 weeks post filming. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That sucks.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's such a weird feeling, because you're just like, am I going to get this back? I don't know. But it's what you sign up for. And I think that like a lot of those contestants, like even with my mate, Mickey, who went on there, like with injuries, I always say that if you think you're going to come out of there without an injury, you're kidding yourself. Like it is intense. And like obviously they're safe in the sense that no one's going to die on there, but you will get, at a very minimum, you are going to get bruised, cuts, like you will lose weight. They're like the minimums that will definitely happen.
It seems like a bit of a catch-22. It's like, you know, for someone like yourself at this stage of your career, it's probably prime time to go on there, because you're going to be like, but then at the same time,
but it's
and
not,
even with Michael, it's like, you know, trying to work your way to a world title fight, and for yourself, you're trying to play your best football, and it probably doesn't exactly align with.
Oh yeah, and you know, and he also and he'll talk about it. Like he also came off with a very serious injury that he would never. He's very similar to me in the sense that we will never complain and we'll never talk about it. We'll just work away in silence. And I saw him work through that to get back to his last fight.
Yeah, and
it was like he ripped it off the bone. Like it was insane. And you know, he pretty much got forced off that show. And I said that I probably would have had to been forced off the show too, because there's just something inside of you that you have to finish it. You've got to prove something to yourself, and it's crazy, but definitely the best thing I've ever done too.
You said that it kind of shows your true colours, and it brings out, kind of shows you who you are, I guess. It strips everything right down, but. What was your biggest takeaway from it in terms of something you can kind of actually use of value to you, like that you learnt about yourself after the show?
Well, I think for me personally, like I've always been in team sports. So that was probably the first thing that I ever did, even though like you work together with the recruits, it was the first individual thing I've ever done. So it was probably the first time where I've gone like I can do this. And I know what I'm capable of as an individual, and I think that really helped me because in footy, like things aren't going to always work out. Like especially as a forward, you know, you might not even get the opportunity to kick goals or whatever, and there might be moments of doubt. But it's a team sport. Like you rely heavily on certain things happening for you to do your job. So I think that going on that show really served me in that. Anything that I put my mind to, I know that I can achieve because I can and work towards that and really, really put the effort in. And it's funny because after that, I said I want to try something new and go after it, and sort of just, it was a domino effect. And I actually set myself out to run a marathon, which I never thought I would ever do something like that. But afterwards I was like, I want a new challenge, and I was sort of hungry for something new. And I went down that route, and I probably never would have done that either. So
brutal. We back in 2017 I did it for the first time, but the second year I did it 2 years in a row. I did a 24-hour sled push at Katie's gym actually the second year. So maybe next time if you're still up for a challenge, I'll rope you into it and come and do it with me.
Oh, sled pushes, man! Like you're just looking at your toes.
Shit ass. You're going through obviously a super exciting period of your life at the moment with a baby on the way with your partner, which is awesome. Tell us a bit about how you're feeling about that, and I guess the excitement around all of that. Like
I've always wanted to be a parent. It's so strange, but like even when I was really, really little, I've always known that it's something that I've wanted. And I don't know, there's something for me that, you know, brings someone up and helping them along life that really intrigues me. And just knowing that I'm going to get that opportunity is so exciting, that I can share life with, you know, my wife, but also, you know, a little me. And it's a different world too, though. Like it's so funny because even little things like baby products, it's like a whole new world to me. Like walking into a baby store, I'm like, this is like a kid's Bunnings or something. Like it's so overwhelming. So that side of it is so interesting because I'm just like, this is so new for me, and it's exciting. Like everything is new. Like I'm learning as I'm going on, and it's just such an exciting, you know, time in my life. But also it's been a journey. Like we went through IVF, and that was a roller coaster. And to be here now and to be waiting for in a few weeks, you know, to be on Earthside is pretty bloody cool.
That's unreal. It's super exciting. Well, I mean, before we wrap up, one thing I wanted to ask you is, and I tend to ask a lot of the guests this, is do you have like a set routine, obviously as a professional athlete as well, like a set routine that you like to follow each day to not only physically set yourself up for a good day, but also mentally?
Yeah, I think that my mornings are pretty set. Like I'm pretty relaxed in terms of other things, but for me, I would say the mornings are for me. Like I like to I'm a 4:30 a.m. wake up.
Same.
I'll do like an hour sweat, like session of whatever, and I'll read and have a coffee, and like that's my time, because then it's like even if the rest of the day went to shit,
you still feel productive. You still
yeah,
have time
like
to
I
yourself,
still
yeah.
did my thing,
Yeah.
and I do that every day. So that's the only thing that I'd say I'm super rigid about, and the other stuff, you know, is life, and
Yeah.
could turn out bad, it could turn out good. So
Lastly, before we really do finish up, I just made shit up before and added in another question here. What is I guess like your ultimate goal at the moment in terms of the next kind of few years or 5 to 10 years time for yourself?
yeah, I think in terms of footy, you know, we all play for a premiership. That's what we play for. And anyone that says they don't is lying.
Yeah.
So ideally, I would love to win a premiership with my team in that period of time. But, you know, things happen and it might not happen. So I wouldn't say it's the be all and end all, but that's definitely a goal. Also to just do one thing every year that's out of my comfort zone. That's a huge goal for me every year, is to do something different. And then just be a good partner, be a good friend, be a good parent. They're probably the ones that are probably most important to me, and then the other stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, a big thank you for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it. And obviously looking forward to keeping up with the coming season and everything coming up, and also the birth of your baby as well, which would be very exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks again. And for everyone who has tuned into this episode, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, we'd love for you to take a screenshot of this one, share it on your Instagram story or with your friend, or share a link or whatever it is to anyone that you think would enjoy this chat. And we'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks again.
Thanks
and thanks everyone for listening.